it makes daily life very, very challenging. And since when we were there, while I was in the army, we were setting up these checkpoints, and we were setting them up as tents, and we were told that these were temporary checkpoints to maintain the harsh violence that was going on. But as time went on, for of course safety reasons, the tents that couldn't protect the soldiers were built up in concrete checkpoints. And today, all the different temporary checkpoints that we set up, either on hilltops or down on the roads, have become concrete passageways. Almost, some of them look like terminals in the airport. And if you need to go through 1 or 2 of those a day, you might actually spend 2.5, 3 hours stuck there, and instead of the 15-minute drive it would have taken. The struggle to not get used to that, I think the Palestinians call normalization. To not get used to the reality that Israel has created in the occupied territories. This is a reality that most Israelis have never seen, have never actually experienced.
But then how do you understand this? How do you understand that one person not going home telling the story to his parents and another, but now whole generations, even if we think that there was a huge change after 2001, and that people who had been, a whole generation who have gone through the army beforehand don't know the reality of the occupation nowadays. Still, you have, what is it now? It's been 9 years. That means 3 periods of 3 years. So you have at least 3 age levels who have completed their service, and still the feeling is that nothing of this goes back to society. This is the reality that people see. What happens when you go back?
I think the national narrative that Israeli Ministry of Education, the Israeli media, the Israeli government puts out there in a very strong way that we grew up in. If we grew up in school and we're told that there was actually no one living here, as growing up in in high school, in our history classes, the books say literally this is what we learned. We study that there wasn't anyone here in Palestine, and that the place was an empty, barren land, and that the Jews came and made it, gave it life. This is the narrative that people grow up in, and there's a collective. A kind of collective denial, maybe, about the fact that there are other people that not only were here before us, but that live amongst us. What's going on today in Jerusalem, for example, now that I work a lot in different neighborhoods in Jerusalem, I noticed that the municipal policy around Palestinian neighborhoods is to just completely ignore it. While West Jerusalem is a well-built-up, wonderful western town with community centers and green parks and swimming pools and a place where any kid might want to grow up, when you cross the line into a Palestinian neighborhood, you literally walk into sometimes a shanty town. There are no infrastructure plans. There's waste everywhere because the waste management is a third per capita of West Jerusalem. There's children go to schools in turns because there aren't enough buildings, simply, and access to healthcare is very challenging, especially now since they built this separation barrier, the wall that literally goes and splits whole communities. Getting from one spot to another is extremely challenging. These are things that Israelis won't take the time, or because daily life doesn't, you go to work, you come home, you go to the mall, you come home, you won't take the time to go see the neighborhood that's 15 minutes away and check out what's going on there. Especially because the national narrative, the news, the education system is geared towards not thinking in that direction, not questioning what's going on, not questioning the policies, and not knowing. How many people know
political? Would you call the way national education works and the way the media works political?
I think it's very strategic, and in that way it would be political. Yes, I think it serves political interests of land grab and ethnic cleansing around Jerusalem. And I realize that is one hell of a charged statement.
Okay, and then I want to ask back. You said, when you said about starting up, breaking the silence, that it was not political. That the beginning
breaking the silence, I don't think was political. No, I still don't think it is. Okay. What breaking the silence does is brings out the soldier's experience, any soldier's experience, no matter if they're a left wing or right wing or what they believe about the occupied territories. The idea is to confront and reflect, put a mirror up, and talk about what the effects are on any soldier that serves in the occupied territories. What it means for an 18-year-old to control other humans, other societies, whole communities, and the power that you get when you're 18 and you have a gun and a grenade launcher and you stand at a checkpoint and you get to control anyone that shows up at your checkpoint that day. That might be 1,000 people that day, that you get to say, no, you have to go home, there's a curfew. Why? Because I said so. That experience, shift after shift, day after day, weeks, months at a time, for years, affects your psyche. It affects your moral ground, because as time goes on, you'll slowly cross some red lines, one at a time. And once you cross a red line, once you smack someone, there's no going back. It's just easier to smack someone next time. And maybe the first time you have a child in your lens and you're looking at a child and you go, oh my God, I just had a child in my lens. But the second time, it's no surprise. And the third time, you'll already be, you're liable to shoot because you get used to this reality. It's, that's something that's not political. That's something that
there is the
really
real and there is the political.
People say here that everything is political, that a farmer's market is political, that a theater group in a refugee camp is political. That's a discussion. That's a tough one for me to answer, and I'd be happy to discuss it. In many ways, everything here is political. Okay. In other ways, this is life. Yes. This is my life. This is people's lives. I don't see it as political. I see it as personal. This is what people are doing to me. This is my life. How can I live in one neighborhood knowing that 15 minutes away, people live in a shanty town as a direct result of my actions?
Okay. In a sharp cut. So you left the military. You started working with or built up Breaking the Silence, which we'll much more extensively explore on the site in different ways. What are you doing? What did you do afterwards? What are you doing? What have you been doing?
After Breaking the Silence, I took my time to bounce around the world, like many typical Israelis, and kind of chose to stay. I didn't actually want to ever come back. I had a really good time meeting and learning and being exposed to other perspectives and letting the world expanded. And I got to meet all over the world a bunch of different grassroots organizations and organizers, whether having to do with human rights in Tibet or organizing around big compost bins in Montreal. Anywhere I go, I run into people that are working on local urgent issues, transcending politics, transcending ethnicity, religion, and that was a wonderful world. And when I started coming back to Israel, it turned out that these people were here too. They were here inside West Jerusalem, and they were in Bethlehem, and they're in the refugee camps, and they're in community gardens here. They're all over the place. There's a whole layer. There's a whole community of people here that are not just in the cracks anymore. They are very much involved in our life.